Molly accidentally comes across Andrea, and the baby looks exactly like TJ. Molly Lansing Davis had been on edge for weeks. Ever since she and TJ Ashford split, her world had felt like a never-ending storm of regret and confusion. Walking through Port Charles, she found herself wandering without purpose, her mind spinning with thoughts of what could have been. But nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to discover. It started as a simple errand, a trip to the local cafe to grab some coffee and clear her head. As she stood in line, her eyes caught sight of a familiar face. Andrea Gates. The name alone sent a chill down her spine. Andrea had been nothing more than a distant figure in TJ's past, someone Molly had barely given a second thought. But here she was, sitting at a corner table, cradling an infant in her arms. Molly wouldn't have given it much thought if it weren't for one undeniable, gut-wrenching detail. The baby looked exactly like TJ. Her heart pounded in her chest as she watched Andrea fuss over the infant, adjusting a small blanket around him. Molly's breath caught in her throat. Could it be? The resemblance was uncanny. The dark, curly hair, the deep brown eyes, features that mirrored TJ's so perfectly it made her dizzy. Questions flooded her mind. Was TJ aware of this? Had he and Andrea reconnected? Or worse, had he been keeping this secret from her all along? Molly's stomach twisted in knots as she debated her next move. As if sensing her gaze, Andrea glanced up, her expression shifting from contentment to shock. For a moment, neither of them moved. The weight of unspoken words loomed between them like an impenetrable wall. Then, as if gathering her composure, Andrea offered a tight smile and turned her attention back to the baby. Molly's hands trembled as she reached for her coffee, barely able to form a coherent thought. She could walk away, pretend she hadn't seen anything, and continue living in blissful ignorance. But that wasn't who she was. She had to know the truth. Summoning every ounce of courage, she made her way toward Andrea's table. "Andrea," she said, keeping her voice steady. Andrea looked up again, her expression wary.
"Molly."
I didn't expect to see you here." Molly's gaze flickered to the baby, her heart racing. "That's a beautiful baby," she said carefully. "How old is he?" Andrea hesitated, as if debating how much to say. "A few months." Molly inhaled sharply. The timeline lined up. If this child was TJ's, that meant Andrea had been pregnant around the time she and TJ were struggling. The implications made her head spin. Does TJ know? The question tumbled out before she could stop it. Andrea's lips parted slightly, and for a brief moment, Molly saw something in her eyes. Fear? Guilt? Whatever it was enough to confirm her suspicions. "Molly, this isn't," Andrea started, but Molly wasn't about to back down. "Is he TJ's?" she pressed, her voice barely above a whisper. Andrea swallowed hard, glancing around as if looking for an escape. "I think we should talk somewhere private." That was all the confirmation Molly needed. The two women relocated to a more secluded corner of the cafe, tension thick in the air. Andrea hesitated before speaking, her fingers tightening around the baby's tiny hand. "I didn't plan for this to happen," she admitted. "TJ and we reconnected for a brief moment before things got complicated again." "He doesn't know about the baby?" Molly felt as though the ground had been ripped out from under her. "You mean to tell me TJ has a child, and he doesn't even know?" Andrea's eyes filled with tears.
"I was scared, Molly.
I didn't know how to tell him. And then, when I heard about everything you two were going through, I thought maybe it was best if I didn't." Molly's emotions warred within her. Anger, betrayal, heartbreak. But beneath it all, one undeniable truth remained. TJ had a right to know. She exhaled slowly, steadying herself. "Andrea, you have to tell him. He deserves to know he has a son." Andrea nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "I know. I just don't know how." Molly softened slightly. As much as this hurt, she could see that Andrea hadn't done this out of malice. Fear had driven her actions, just as fear had driven Molly's when she let TJ go. "I'll help you," Molly said, surprising even herself. "But TJ needs to hear this from you." As Andrea nodded hesitantly, Molly knew that their lives were about to change forever. And TJ? He had no idea what was coming.